Welcome to Engaging ESG, where we consider, challenge, and celebrate the evolving world of environmental, social, and governance communications. I'm Jennifer Owen, Senior Director of Marketing at Caesar.
And I'm Katie Callens, Global Sustainability Lead at Adobe. For Season 3, we're talking with climate communications leaders who are shaping the future of sustainability messaging. From connecting with stakeholders to crafting compelling impact stories, we'll uncover the strategies that worked and learn from those that didn't.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or new to the field, you'll find practical tips and insights in every episode.
And whether you're working on your first sustainability report or reimagining your organization's climate narrative, these conversations will help you navigate the complexities of ESG communications. Let's get started.
Katie, what is up today?
Hey, Jen, how's it going?
We're all in 4 million meetings. Is that a thing?
Yes, so many meetings on a Friday does not bode well, but I'm actually very excited for today's conversation and meeting in particular.
Oh, me too, because we have talked a lot from the corporate angle through this season.
Right.
And either we're talking with people working with corporates or people in corporates and talking in it. And so this time we're shifting our focus and we're talking about sustainability comms through a community perspective.
Yes, it's such an important angle. And I think sometimes it gets forgotten, unfortunately. But as we've discussed before, the sustainability transition cannot succeed without bringing everyone along. And communities are such a central part of that movement and of that narrative, and especially those that have been historically left behind or excluded from the conversation. So excited to bring more inclusivity today.
Well, let's include our guest. Let's start with ourselves. So today we're joined by Daphany Rose Sanchez, who's Executive Director of Kinetic Communities Consulting. She is a born and raised New Yorker and raised in New York City public housing. And Daphny witnessed firsthand the intersections of housing discrimination, climate divestment, and economic injustice. And this experience moved her to fight for climate resiliencies in the communities that she grew up in. And so she founded Kinetic Communities in New York City as a social enterprise that advocates for and implements strategic energy equity transformation. We're going to make her define that for us because I love that phrase, but let's pull that apart. But for diverse New York communities, and her organization works to connect, educate, and simplify energy efficiency opportunities for residential building owners with limited resources. So welcome to Engaging ESG, Daphny.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Really, really excited to be here today.
Welcome, Daphny. So as noted, we're going to deep dive into your work because it's incredibly important and impressive. But we wanted to start with a personal story as well, because we are storytellers on this podcast. So could you tell us a little bit more about how your experiences growing up in public housing shaped your approach to energy equity and sustainability and how you've brought it all together to create Kinetic?
Yeah, sure. Happy to talk. So as you all mentioned, I grew up in public housing and I actually was born and raised in public housing. My family, I'm a native New Yorker. I always joke around with folks, but I'm very serious. Like I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn. I went to school in Brooklyn. I'm most likely going to die in Brooklyn. I tell my family, I'm like, if you see me look like I'm dying somewhere else, get me on a plane.
Bring me to Brooklyn.
And so the reason why is because I have really amazing memories of my childhood, and I've heard stories of my father's childhood and my grandmother's childhood in different neighborhoods and different corners of the community that I lived in. So being born and raised in public housing, internally, I have remembered the holidays and how my family would all come together. There'll be 30 of us in a small 1-bedroom apartment. So it was super hot with a lot of food, a lot of music. My cousins and I were always running around, and it was just such a beautiful interaction. I really love that experience. And when I think about the 4 walls that I was raised in, I have those very vivid memories of my great grandmother saving me an ice cream and my father blowing up his speakers and like putting a lot of salsa and merengue. And I also have memories of being extremely frustrated because the heat wasn't working. And I'll be extremely annoyed because our walls would bubble up and there would be this black mold everywhere. I never put it together because I was a kid that my parents had no control over the physical environment that I had and that they were growing me in. And at the same time, I never really understood the stigma around affordable housing and around public housing, the projects or public developments or whatever it is that you like to call it, until I went to school. So I would normally talk about, I grew up in NYCHA and I was raised in NYCHA. My whole family's in NYCHA. And I remember in middle school, very explicitly, my French teacher would tell me, like, Daphne, you live in the projects. Like, don't even bother coming to class. You're going to wind up dropping out and you're going to have a kid like the rest of them. It was insane. She was unhinged. And being a native New York kid, which you've taken the train station when the kids are out, you know how annoying it was. I was like, yeah, you want to say that? And then I was like, this is the reason why you suck as a French teacher. And I was mad, and I was mad at the moment because I wasn't understanding how this woman that never met me automatically said what my life was going to be based on where I lived. And it was so perplexing because I was furious at the moment. And as I grew up, I started realizing there's more and more stereotypes about people that live in public housing, about where their life trajectory was going to be. And it made me very angry. And angry because I just couldn't understand the dynamics of why are these stereotypes there. As I grew up, I started learning more and more about housing and housing policy and how structural racism, basically legislations like redlining, where the federal government, irony of all ironies, the federal government would say, we're not funding particular communities because there were Puerto Ricans there, because there's Black folks there, because there's immigrants, and how that today meant that a lot of those areas where public housing exists have been historically disinvested in. And it was such a shocking moment to understand that someone that never met me, right? It was even before I lived, but during my grandmother's days, basically decided how my life was going to be today. And I was like, absolutely not. This is not going to happen. So I started working in the intersection of housing and community first, ensuring that folks would have information about what is housing, how do you utilize it to support you and support your family. And my parents were pursuing the ideology of an American dream. And so they bought a house in Staten Island, and we all made fun of them for it, including myself. And less than a year of them buying that house, we lost it because Hurricane Sandy hit.
Oh.
And we were in the home when it happened. So we got rescued after 8 hours by boat. And I remember thinking to myself, again, from the mentality of austerity and the mentality of survival mode, like this, yes, public housing is significantly disinvested in, but you went and pursued the American dream, which is not for our communities. And look what happened.
Yeah.
It's not helpful when your parents want the best for you and your family. And when I took a step back and I looked at some redlining maps, I realized that the only places my parents can afford a home was an area that was previously redlined. And when I had that epiphany, I started thinking about, okay, addressing housing is not enough. We need to address housing with climate so that the next generations and the current communities that are out there, they're not impacted by the same traumatic experiences that we had to go through. And so that's what kind of started my journey in looking at this intersection of energy, equity, and housing, was really ensuring that Black and Brown communities, low-income communities, and communities of color, that they don't have to go through that experience. We often hear about the conversation of climate change, and folks are so enamored by the future. I'm always like, no, today. Like, people are experiencing extreme situations every single day. And because they're in survival mode, because they're trying to make the best memories for their families, they don't address it. They're just like, how do I make sure we have food on the table? And that's not okay.
Yeah. Well, and then it's even the concept of redlining. it's a simple, but also can be a complex topic. Then you get into the energy topics, and those can get complex. And so I was just in a conversation where we're trying to unpack a new decision that one of the main frameworks in energy or in climate is talking about. And it's like, how are you navigating that with people who are thinking about today and not this existential crisis of the climate?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the reality is the climate sector likes to feel very special. It's just construction. It's construction.
So special that they have their own podcast just about talking about themselves. Okay, just noted.
But we have to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
Right? We have to understand where they're coming from, what their daily experiences are. And so when we talk about climate to our community, we're talking about, man, don't you hate it that there's a whole lot of roaches and rats in our apartments? Aren't you mad that the heat is out of whack? Wouldn't it be great to not have to worry about your electrical bill going up and down every single month? We meet them where they're at.
Yes. And I love how you are really talking about this kind of human-centered design, people being at the center of these solutions. I think on your website, you note that these are driven by the people most effective.
For us at KC3, what's very important is we meet people where they're at. I think often when folks are talking about clean energy solutions, housing solutions, climate solutions, it's always focused on the tech element of things and not focus on the human element of things. The reality is that we're all experiencing so many things outside of our 9 to 5, and our brains 99% of the time are thinking about those other things as we're working. So part of our approach to engaging community-based organizations or local community members is really meeting them where they're at. There's an entire ecosystem of institutions and entities that have provided immediate services and immediate needs to community members who are currently under threat. And they continue to push forward no matter what their circumstances is. So for us, understanding, being a part of these communities and understanding how these communities work, the first thing that we like to do is just a conversation, right? Yeah. Understanding where these organizations, what are they doing? What do they need support? How can we leverage the resources that we have to build up their capacity? The important thing in engaging organizations and like communities is that often folks are coming with an agenda of like, okay, this is what I want to get done. This is, we want to install solar next week. So when we engage organizations, when we engage community, we're doing it from a place of learning, a place of curiosity, a place to like acknowledge our unconscious bias and putting those bias to the side to ensure that we come in our whole selves ready to have whatever conversation that needs to happen. The next piece of it is the idealization phase, right? So you might have an idea of like, okay, I need these nonprofits to help us aggregate community members to sign up for community solar. Like, it's a very linear approach. The nonprofits might be a food justice organization. They run a food pantry. And so in theory, it sounds like a very easy thing to do, but the reality is that they might not have as much tech on site, right, to do those registrations. And when we engage organizations, what we'll do is we'll ask them, what are their ideas? How do they want to execute a particular initiative or effort? Do they have the capacity? And often when you're framing it as like, hey, here is an opportunity, what are the pathways that you feel most comfortable in pursuing? You're able to co-design solutions with community members and organizations that allows them to feel comfortable and allows you to explore something new. And so idealization is so critical. And sometimes it'll put you in an uncomfortable zone, right? Sometimes you have to do work in the evenings or at night. Sometimes you have to think about childcare or think about food support. Again, we're human beings, right? And so we're experiencing life with different dimensions. Some people have kids, some people have aging parents, some people have pets, some people are working 2 jobs. And so understanding kind of where people are sitting at that moment is critical to ensure accessibility and a pathway forward that works for all.
And what's the role of building the trust? Because that's all tactical. Where's my childcare and what time works for everyone? But you have to trust, we say trust the process. You have to trust the people that are coming in with these new ideas or this change.
Yeah, absolutely. The reason why we like to work with local nonprofits is because they've spent decades building trust. So when we enter spaces, especially when we're engaging new organizations, it's very important for us to ensure that we're listening to their concerns and not diminishing their concerns. When we're talking about clean energy and climate, we also have to be mindful that private utilities have charged a lot of money. There hasn't been a lot of flexibility in terms of how constituents are paying for their utility bills. It can be seen as a burden. So to have a conversation about solar and EV vehicles when folks are energy insecure and they're struggling to pay for their energy bills can feel so far out of place.
Yeah.
And you're immediately breaking that trust. You're not even building any trust. You're just putting a door to your face. So it's important to understand kind of who you're talking to and like what's the space that you're entering and acknowledging there has been prior harm and not diminishing or eliminating what people are saying to you as not valuable.
Right. Well, and then because we're talking a lot about talking to the communities, and then there's also the talking back to the entities that want to come into these neighborhoods. Or so you're talking to engineers, you're talking to funders, you're talking to policy. Like, what's the context switching, the code switching that's happening with all these different groups?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. One of the things that we joke around in KC3 is like we're energy social workers. So we go, we talk to community, we're getting their information, and then we have to come back and translate it to utilities, to engineers, to architects, to policy advisors, so everything around the gamut of clean energy. And what's important to us is we understand that what is the end goal of that particular entity? So for example, if we're talking to policy professionals, we understand that they're thinking about legislation or ideas and initiatives that they can deploy to help solve through policy. I think the important thing about understanding what the pain points are for the different stakeholders is understanding what's valuable to them.
Yeah.
So we're sharing an example of a nonprofit partner that we've had that had a lot of concerns of community members, it's actually explicitly aging population community members. We have a big population of folks that are aging in place and their roofs were not great. So they wanted to understand like what's the opportunities for new roof replacements. So we engaged the utility and the state agency and saying, hey, here's an opportunity for you all to engage a constituency that you traditionally do not engage and provide some information awareness on building envelope work and also renewables. What are some of the social support programs that are needed so that as a senior homeowner is going through this, they're not feeling too overwhelmed with paperwork or needing food assistance or needing health assistance. And so we package this kind of holistic solution into one thing that makes it purely focused on a climate solution of building envelope and solar for the purposes of the utility and the state agency, which from their perspective, that's what they care for.
Right.
So just building off of that, I think as you're talking through this process of building trust and building literacy on all of these programs, something that's coming to mind is not only the importance of this for the communities that you serve, but also that literally everyone I know who's trying to do energy efficiency upgrades are struggling with this, right? Like, even if you have a lot of resources, even if you're like a rich white man, trying to figure out if you
oh my gosh,
how to get solar. And like in our previous roles, Jen and I were kind of working with the messenger team to try to understand like, how do we build Facebook groups to like literally build the literacy around like not only the process to do this,
like how do you read your energy bill?
How do you read your energy bill? How do you get the tax credits? Like
such an opaque process for people who have capacity to learn. And so I love hearing about the like meeting people where they're at, translation services for all the things. And I feel like there's probably a lot that like the broader energy groups and agencies across the US could learn from the practices of your organization, because it's a struggle.
Yeah, it's a struggle. And I've attempted to wade into it. I went to a panel at, an event, and I was like, I'm all in. And then I hit the wall. I only took like 2 steps into it, and it was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. So I can only imagine when you're in more of a present time focus of trying to put food on the table, that like, why would you even take those 2 steps? Why?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we often remind our clients that, I remember when people started talking about decarbonization and heat pumps and how cool. And I was talking to my partner's mom, who's Dominican, and she's like, those are air conditioners, and we have them in DR, and we've been having them for like 20 years. And I started laughing because she was right. I was like, oh, you're right. I feel like an idiot because I'm over here explaining something to you, and you're over here schooling me. And I say this because it's important for us to understand that, again, what we're doing is really cool and innovative, and we have to meet people where they're at. And sometimes they already know it, and it doesn't take as much theorizing and analysis. We just have to share, like, hey, that air conditioning you have in DR, well, it also provides heat, and you can put it in your apartment. But if you want to do it, like, I'll help you. And it's just as simple as that. And it makes it a lot more concrete, and it makes it a lot more of an immediate thing that makes it accessible and makes it easier for people to digest and do.
So what are some of the projects that you're actually working on right now? I mean, maybe you can't talk about certain live clients, but like work that you've done in the past that we could say, this is how it looks in real life.
Yeah, so we work in kind of 3 spaces. So the first space that we work is policy and data analysis. And this is where we're helping our clients understand, what does it mean to actually connect the data analysis to what people are saying? So often you'll see initiatives and efforts that come out to the market, and you'll get like a big backlash of community members being like, this had like nobody talked to anybody about this. And what we like to do is saying, okay, the data analysis is great. Let's go talk to real people. I mean, data analysis are people, and I love them, and we work with them very closely. Let's go talk to real people that live in these buildings on a day-to-day basis and see what their reactions are, see what's actually important versus what's not important, and what needs to be prioritized. So we had the opportunity to work with the City of New York and E3, who's a great data analysis team, in an effort called Power Up NYC, which was New York City's first long-term energy plan. What was really cool about putting together that energy plan was that we're actually funding nonprofits that work in housing and climate to give us feedback and to help direct the research. And then we would do town halls and saying, here's where the research is at. What is important to you, and what do you not care about?
Right.
And from that, we were able to come up with a long-term energy plan for the City of New York that resonated what New Yorkers wanted.
Yeah.
And it was the first time in New York City that was done. And so that was an effort we were really excited to participate and lead. It's up on the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice website. If you want to look at it, it's called Power Up NYC.
We will link to it.
The second category of work that we do at KC3 is program design and implementation. So as I mentioned, a lot of utilities and municipalities are really perplexed with this concept. Well, how do we talk to people? We don't know. And it's just hilarious because sometimes I'll sit in some larger, in the prior administration, we're having a lot of conversation about IRA and GGRF, Inflation Reduction Act, and greenhouse gas reduction funds. And I remember these like 50, 70 group people coming together, just really having a hard time. And I was laughing, and I was like, has any of y'all considered just asking? Just communicate, just ask. And people will be brutally honest with you and tell you, or what are you thinking is a more PC response to what I get normally.
Yeah.
And so in our program implementation, there was an effort that we did in partnership with Neighborhood Housing Services of Queens called Electrify NYC. And that actually came out because a homeowner, and that project has transitioned now into the NYSERDA Clean Energy Regional Hub with Neighborhood Housing Services of Queens. And it came from because a homeowner came to the nonprofit that does a lot of housing work, wasn't doing energy work in the past. And they were like, we got this fine from the city of New York for $20,000 because we installed solar incorrectly. And we don't know. They were monolingual. They were overwhelmed. And the ED from the organization called me and was like, Daphny, what the hell is this?
Yeah. How did this happen? Yeah.
Fines for solar. This is why people don't trust solar companies. Like, let's back up. Let's understand what happened. Let me help you navigate.
Mm-hmm.
We talked to the state agency. The state agency didn't have anybody that spoke Spanish. So we translated for free for the state agency. Yeah. We then found out that the homeowner that doesn't speak any English contracted with a contractor that doesn't speak Spanish with some very interesting terms and conditions that were only in English. And so we elevated this to consumer protections. There's no consumer protections at the time for solar installations. And so this like snowball effect happened where we were able to get the contractor to the contractor just never connected the panels to the meter. That's what happened.
Okay.
And they never submitted the permits to the Department of Building. So they got fined for illegally installing panels, and then they installed it incorrectly, the homeowner. And I am sorry that the sector did this. Let's equip your team with just knowledge of what is a solar panel, what are the different financial mechanisms, and how do you assess your roof? Because again, the market is so focused on the tech that we incentivize contractors to go out there and do as many panel installations as possible, which is good. However, there is an unintended consequence of targeting particular communities and those communities not having the informational awareness of understanding what they're signing up. Now, people on the other side will say, well, like, that's their fault. How are you signing something that you don't know? If somebody's coming to you and you're in a financially constrained situation saying you'll get 0% down and this will help lower your bills, it's like, I understand it and I get it. Like, I know why she signed.
Yeah.
And that is also not okay. It's very predatory.
Right.
Yeah.
So through this effort, we worked with the state agency and we said, hey, listen, here's an opportunity to help this particular community learn about solar. We can't guarantee installations, but let's just get the door and get them to give you letters of commitment that they would be interested in exploring solar and even installing it in the future.
Mm.
The agency agreed. And through this effort, we actually were able to get a couple of homeowners that were really excited. And they were like, you know what? We want to do it. We actually want to own it. And we were able to leverage some other city dollars that did roof repairs to help kind of Frankenstein the funding so that they didn't have to pay for the panel installation and they got to own it. Yeah. So Electrify NYC evolved into the Clean Energy Regional Hub with NHS of Queens. And now NHS of Queens is really spearheading a lot of the energy conversation in that community. And we are like slowly backing up as they continue to get funding. And that's our goal.
Right.
We get funding, we share the funding. And then as they grow and they feel more comfortable, they acquire funding and we get less to the point that we're at $0 for it and they continue to move.
Right.
And we do this within different organizations, helping them grow, helping them build those relationships and feel comfortable in the information they're sharing in their community. So that's kind of the secondary work.
Yeah. And then you move on, you take the bat signal and you go on to the next problem.
Exactly. And then the last thing we do is organizational capacity. So we help nonprofits understand the dynamics of what is a rate structure? How do you actually put together a project budget? What's the time and materials versus milestones? Because they're used to grants, not necessarily used to utility contracts or government contracts. And so we help them navigate that structure. And it's everything from like grant underwriting to HR and leadership development support that we provide those suite of services for. And we've done that with every single nonprofit partner that we onboard for projects.
Wow.
Well,
this is such an amazing business model. I'm sure everyone listening is going to be excited to learn more about Kinetic Consulting and think about ways to support y'all. We are at the end of the time though, but before we wrap up, we'd love to hear your perspective on the future.
Yeah.
We're obviously in a really uncertain time, especially for communities, frontline communities. And so is there anything that's giving you hope about the climate movement and its ability to truly center the needs of
she has thoughts.
Yeah.
I have so many thoughts for a quick conversation. I will say this, no matter what happens, it's unfortunate, but communities are resistant. They figure it out. They continue to move. They continue to thrive. They continue to find joy in whatever areas they find joy. And I think about my family, right? We were in this crappy apartment with mold and our walls bubbling. And I still loved every holiday. I still enjoyed every time that I spent with my great grandmother and with my grandma and with my parents and my cousins. And I appreciate those moments of joy because despite the chaos that was happening in New York in the 90s, I didn't feel it.
Mm.
And what happens in low-income communities and communities of color and other marginalized populations is that they always try to find joy despite everything bad happening. And considering that we are in some interesting times, I still see that joy and that flame still present. And that helps me move forward and push the market, even if they don't care anymore. I'm like, I don't care if you don't care. This is so a need and we still need to do this.
Right.
And so that's what helps me think about the future.
So there is a future for us, right?
There is. Okay. Now, what's happening in the externally, I have no control over that. And I hope civilization still exists. But
by the time this episode goes live, that's our hope too. Yeah. So, oh my God. We got dark real fast. But the other thing we like to end our conversations on are like, what are you reading or what are you watching? What's kind of helping you? And it doesn't have to be climate stuff. I mean, my things keeping me going are definitely not climate stuff. But like, we like to share some ideas of things you could be looking at, watching, reading.
Yeah. So I will be honest with you all because my work consumes me. I had like family members that have passed away recently, fairly young. And 22 and 40. And that helped me reshift my focus.
Right. Yeah.
None of this matters.
None of it. Yeah.
Like none of this matters. And so every opportunity that I have that I'm not working, I'm spending it with my cousins. I'm spending it with my significant other, with my grandmother. I'm having that space to really enjoy their time. And I always tell my team that I love the work that we do. I love that we're telling people to go F themselves in a very professional manner and helping our communities live. And people and our relationships is key to moving forward. And so that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on, is spending time with my family and my friends. I've been trying to keep running. I ran the marathon last year. So I'm like, okay, let me get my butt off this chair. And then we're eating a lot. And it's been great. I really appreciate that. And I think that's something that we forget, right? We talk about human-centered design and we're trying to do this work for the right reason. But when you take a step back and actually experience human life and human relationships, it centers you and being like, okay, despite all this chaos, like this is why we're moving forward. And these are things that we need to cherish and appreciate.
For sure. And hopefully you get a little bit of salsa music and cumbia music.
Yeah, add a little of that.
That's what you're listening to.
All the time. When my family comes together, it's still like 40 of us in an apartment. They're just in my apartment now.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
And I love it. I love it. It's so nice to have them. My family's super mixed. So I'm Puerto Rican and Costa Rican, but I was born and raised in New York. And my family is Salvadorian, Ecuadorian, Black, Italian, Jamaican. Like it's just a hodgepodge of people. And it's always a good time. There's always music that's way too loud so you can't hear. There's always a baby sleeping on people's coats in a room somewhere. And then it's always a lot of alcohol. That's a lot
Self-care. Self-care.
And so I encourage everyone to do that. I encourage everyone to spend time with people that they enjoy spending time with. And it's hard because you're tired after a long day of work. You just want to lay down in bed. But I encourage folks to push yourself out for that dinner. Yeah. You don't have to go out. You can just hang out and watch, I don't know, White Lotus or whatever's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the value of recharge cannot be overstated right now. So thank you for ending us on that note, Daphne. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights on community-centered approaches to sustainability. It was such a treat to meet you and learn more about the wisdom of your work and of your communities.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here with both of you.
Thank you for joining us on Engaging ESG. Have a question for us to consider or a strategy you'd like us to cover? Email us today at engagingesg@gmail.com.
Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to Engaging ESG today. It helps us grow, and even better, be sure to share the podcast with your favorite sustainability, diversity, or social impact colleague. And until next time, keep engaging.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.